Thank you very much. Thanks for giving space to half an hour to the European crocodilians. And I'm starting with not exactly a scientific publication. In December 2011, The Economist started a paper with this. 2 sentences. Fashion affects all human activities and science is not exempt. In the field of paleontology, for example, the stock of crocodiles is rising. And I think they were right, and they are still right. There's a lot of people working on crocs in general, and European crocs as well. And this is good not only for our age index, because there's people citing your papers, but there are a lot of new things that are published not every month, but I mean every season at least. So I had some troubles in squeezing in 25-30 minutes the whole European fossil record of the crocodilians. So I had to select the topics. So I'm going to briefly present the extant crocodilians and then to clarify the meaning of the term crocodilian in the context of this talk. Then we will see the origin of the European crocodilians, focus on the most successful, the most common European crocodilian, the Procynodon, and then we will see the last steps, the last adventures, let's say, of the European crocodilians. So, who are the extant crocodilians? Well, probably everybody knows that we can group them into 3 clades or families. Alligatorids, crocodilids, and gavialids. And the alligatorids are currently represented by 4 genera and 8 species of alligators and caimans. And crocodilids, 4 genera and 16 species. And the gavialids, only 1 species or 2, because probably you know that Tomistoma, the false gharial, according to the molecular phylogeny, is a gharial, so it belongs to the gavialids. But according to the morphological phylogenies, including or not fossils, it is clearly a crocodilian. So roughly 25 species, extant species. This is their distribution, and there are no living crocodilians in Europe or in the Mediterranean basin, but we know that they were present in historical times in northern Africa and in the Middle East. Not at present, somehow, unfortunately. I'm not going into details, but you see that there are some circles or little small squares. Actually, this picture comes from the National Geographic Society, so it should be relatively accurate. And some taxa are in very good shape, I mean, have very large populations. Others are in serious troubles, like the Chinese alligator or the gharials. There are only 3, let's say, living populations of gharials, and for a total of 300 specimens. So, please try to remember that about 1/3 of the extant species of crocodilians are more endangered than the giant panda. That is an icon for the conservation biology, but about one third of the extant species of crocs are critically endangered, and the panda is just endangered. Or the African elephant and the baleen whales, they are not as in troubles as 1/3 of the extant crocodilians. So, crocodilian, what does it mean? Everybody here knows that crocs are strictly related to birds, and these animals are quite different from each other. There is no way to misidentify a bird for a croc or a croc for a bird. But if you have a look at the fossil record, there is a lot of stuff in between birds and crocs. And so how many taxa are present on the branch that leads to crocs? Mannion and colleagues published a very nice paper last September, if I remember well, and they counted them, and there are about 500 taxa. So I think that as paleontologists we should be quite proud of our results because we have been able to fill a gap. And the term crocodilian, at least in the context of this talk, is limited to the crown group. There are other options like this one, but actually it's really impossible to put in half an hour all the fossil record of the crocodilia if you use this definition. So I'm not going to talk about these animals that Paul Serino likes very much, or other taxa. Some of them inhabited, like the marine, let's say, crocs, inhabited for sure Europe. I'm somehow forgetting all these animals. So the origin of the European crocodilians. This phylogeny was published, I think, a few weeks ago by Chicho Narvaez and colleagues, and you find crocodilia here, and the outgroup of the crocodilia is made exclusively by European taxa, and now this clade has a name, Allodaposuchidae, the Allodaposuchids. And also in this clade here, I mean, most of the taxa are European. So crocodilians in general have somehow European roots, deep roots. And before commenting the crocodilian fossil record of Europe, I would like to show you how many new things were published about the outgroup of crocodilia, the Allodaposuchids. There are now about 12 localities in Europe, and until a few years ago, only one locality in Romania and one or two localities in Spain were known. The type material of Allodaposuchus precedens, was described by Nopcha in 1928. It's still available in Budapest. And I've been lucky enough, about 10 years ago, I have been invited by Thierry Smith and Vlad Kodrea to work with them on a new skull from a new locality. And it's a very special taxon with a biotic region here. I'm not going into details, but it's quite unique. Even if this character is not exclusively present in this clade. And then last year with Jérémy Martin, we referred to the same species a few skulls of different ontogenetic stages, and this is an option. I meant to consider them as belonging to a single taxon. Maybe in the future somebody will propose something different. But Puerto Las Pascual, who should be here, he published in 2013 a new species of Allodaposuchus subjuniperus, and then Blanco Tal 2 years ago, Allodaposuchus palustris. This material is quite fragmentary. The species is probably valid. Last year, the same authors published Allodaposuchus halki, dedicated to the Marvel character Hulk. The material is very fragmentary, so I'm not so sure that this species is actually valid. Again, Puerto Las described the new genus of Allodaposuchus, Arenisuchus, and for sure informative material in this case. And then Narvaez and colleagues last year, a new genus, Lohuecosuchus from Lohueco, a new great locality in Spain, and the second genus from the same locality was published a few weeks ago. So it's not so important if all these taxa are valid or not. What is important is that there is a lot of unexpected new material that that was found in the last few years and described. And moreover, thanks to this image published by Puerto Las Pascual, by Eduardo. By the way, he is looking for a postdoctoral grant, so in case you need a collaborator, he is for sure a good croc expert. So in this figure, I mean, if we enlarge the upper the upper portion, we can understand clearly that the KPG boundary, this red line here, marks a change in the Eosuchian, in the Eosuchians of Europe, because the Allodoposuchids and also other non-crocodilian Eosuchians, they went extinct, and only a crocodilian survived. A marine species, as indicated in this other diagram. So we have the end of the Cretaceous here, this vertical line, and then this continuous line is the European freshwater species of crocodilomorphs, and they had a significant drop, but it's not the same for the freshwater species, and actually, for the marine species, and actually Thoracosaurus was a marine gavaloid, here depicted along with the mosasaur. And there's material of Thoracosaurus from the Maastrichtian, not far from here, at Naturalis in Leiden. And there's also historical material in Sweden. There's another gavaloid in Europe, Eosuchus. You can see it in the collections, I think not in the exhibition in Brussels. And it comes from the French-Belgian border. There are other long-snouted crocodilians in Europe, but they belong to the crocodilians. They are the crocodylioids. They are tomistomins, like Kentissuchus in the Eocene of England, Dolosuchus in the Eocene of Belgium, and Gavialosuchus or Tomistoma. There are several remains in different localities in Europe. We will see something else at the end of this talk. There are also other short-snouted crocodylioids, like Asiatosuchus depressifrons, originally described as Crocodylus depressifrons. For sure it is not Crocodylus. Maybe it is Asiatosuchus. There's material in the late Paleocene of France and then early Eocene of Belgium. In the Royal Museum of Natural History in Brussels, there are a lot. There's a very nice collection of this taxon, also nearly complete skeleton, one nearly complete skeleton like this one. And besides gavaloids and crocodylioids, and then we will see also alligatoroids, Europe hosted a fourth taxon that is now a fourth family, if you like, that is now extinct, the planocranids. They were once referred to genus Christicampsus. Now Chris Brochu proposed a new genus, Boverisuchus. They are characterized by very derived morphology, very deep snout, slender and crenulated teeth, and ungual phalanxes that very probably hosted horny hooves. And there's material in different localities. I think that they are all from the Eocene, but now I'm not so sure. There is material, for example, also in the Monte Bolca area in northern Italy. This is just to show you that they, according to the phylogeny proposed by Chris Brochu just 3 years ago, they belong to their own clade, the planocranids. This is the only extinct clade of European, totally extinct, not only in Europe, of European crocodilians. Then Diplocynodon, a successful crocodilian. Why I say successful? Because if you have a look at the literature, this taxon is cited in about 200 European localities. And and also some in Turkey, as you can see there. It is usually considered an endemic taxon of Europe, but actually we had a poster, I think, 2 days ago, and there's maybe something in the Palaeontologists of Morocco, and I'm really curious to see that material published. And the oldest Diplocynodon remains are from the Paleocene of France, of Montberry. And then there's Eocene material, a few Oligocene localities, and then the most of the material is Miocene. Diplocynodon went extinct at the beginning of the late Miocene, as we will see later. And you have to pay attention because in many cases, Diplocynodon is cited on the basis of isolated teeth, and crocodilian isolated teeth are rarely, maybe always, non-diagnostic. And so, very probably, it was not so abundant as those dots could indicate. But nevertheless, the remains of Diplocynodon are quite common in the European fossil record, and they come from settings like this one, open and relatively arid, but in other cases also from forested environments with permanent water. There are 10, 11 species that are now considered valid. Many more should be revised, so this is a fertile line of research. If somebody is interested, please try to revise all the Diplocynodon species. And the type species is Diplocynodon or Diplocynodon from France, described by Pommel in 1847. And the name Diplocynodon betrays its most relevant character. The alveoli 3 and 4 of the dentary are subequal in size and nearly confluent. So these animals have two, you can see them here, fangs. And so it's relatively easy to identify if you have at least a dentary. This is a character that in Europe is exclusively present in Diplocynodon, but be careful if you are working on material from North America. You could make a mistake because there are other taxa with this character. And maybe those taxa, like Corellosuchus, could be related to Diplocynodon. Actually, we do not know at the moment, or better, according to the phylogenies that are currently published, also those that I published. Diplocynodon is not related to Corellosuchus, it's an alligatoid, but there are similarities. I'm not so sure that the resolution power of the matrix that we are using is so precise to really retrieve natural relationship, at least in this branch. In the museum in Paris, you can see a very nice, compiled but nice skeleton of the type species. And I think we recently published the final version, not only the online version, of a specimen of Diplocynodon rotelli from the early Miocene of Spain. As you can see, there's still rock inside the skull. It's not possible to remove it mechanically. So we CT scanned it, and Joseph Fortune did this for us. Actually, he kindly prepared this because last year I had 8 minutes in a TV program in the Italian national TV that has an average number of viewers of about 1 million people. And so 1 million people theoretically saw that rolling Diplocynodon. And so somehow it's really successful, let's say. And but actually, I mean, thanks to the CT scan, we've been able to check a few characters that were unknown, and so to improve the knowledge of this taxon. And Diplocynodon is present in the UK in the late Eocene of Cordwell, and its material originally described by Wood, but also by Owen. There is a long story about this material. I'm jumping it now. There is material in Messel, not the large Asiatosuchus at the back, but these are Diplocyanidon darwini, very nice specimens, 3D prepared, and there are also several juveniles and subadult. Somebody, I do not have time and energy at the moment, somebody should study the ontogenetic trajectory of this taxon. The material is really great. Then Fry et al. Described nearly 30 years ago Barifracta deponia from Messel, and 4 years ago with Hervé Smith we studied a specimen 3D prepared. It has a lot of detailed morphological information, and according to our results, it is actually a Diplocyanidon species. So if we are right, there are 2 Diplocyanidon species in the same site, and also in this case there are juveniles and or subadult specimens in different institutions. The oldest Diplocyanidon, as I mentioned, comes from the late Paleocene of France, and 2 years ago we published this material, and actually these and the next 1 or 2 slides are connected to the talks of yesterday, because we had, when we described this, we had this very nicely preserved skull and the lower jaw in a private collection, and then we had material in the Paris Museum and in Brussels, so in public institutions. So what to do? One option was to discard completely this material and to lose a lot of information. And at a certain point, the reviewers, at the end it was published in the Zoological Journal of the Linnean Society, but at a certain point the reviewers asked to remove all the information that was connected to the private material. We managed to actually solve the problem by erecting the new species on the basis of this dentary. It is in Brussels, so it's in a public institution. And then we CT scanned the private material. We put these videos as supplementary online information, and then we put the STL file in a public collection, the collection of my university. So it has a collection number, and if anyone wants to check characters, the collection manager can send the file and you can work on it. I would like to have your opinion about this way of solving the problem. Maybe somebody agrees, somebody doesn't. And in terms of phylogeny, Diplocyanidon ramensis is the oldest Diplocyanidon, but as you can see there, it's apparently is not the morphologically most primitive. Maybe something is wrong in the matrix, maybe things are really like this. So the last European crocodilians. I mentioned already this paper by Menin et al. It's a very nice and useful paper, and they published this figure. We have here the paleo latitude is plus 50, minus 50 is 0 here. And hopefully you can see the black dots and the red dots. The black dots are non-marine tetrapods. The red dots are the non-marine pseudosuchians, so crocodilians and their relatives. And what is relevant in this context is that there's a shrinkage, latitudinal shrinkage during the Miocene in the crocodilians. Yeah, thank you. I see 24 here. So it means 6, not 24 more minutes. And so there's a shrinkage in the red dots in the latitudinal distribution of the pseudosuchians, but not in the distribution of the non-marine tetrapods. And And actually, this fits very well with the European fossil record, because in the late Miocene, what we have is few localities that are in southern Europe, and in these localities we have maybe the last representative of Diplocynodon, those circles, but we have a newcomer, Crocodylus, and we know that Crocodylus was present in northern Africa, at least in As-Sahabi, in the late Miocene of As-Sahabi. This is a very nice, actually a very nice story, because there's potential, there's material that is potentially Crocodylus in Scontrone that was mentioned yesterday or the day before yesterday, I think. And this is the village of Scontrone. The locality is up there. The elevation is around 1,000 meters, but in the Tortonian it was at the level of the sea. And this is Paul Mazza digging about 10 years ago when we were there. And at the beginning they found only isolated teeth, but a few years ago a dentary was discovered, and it is clearly non-Diplocynodon. There are no two subequal and confluent alveoli in the dentary. And there are no apomorphies of Crocodylus in this jaw, but everything suggests that it could be Crocodylus. Then there's historical material originally referred to Crocodylus bamboli from Montebambo in Italy. The material is still available in Florence and Siena. The species is probably not valid, but if you analyze the relationships of this material, it clusters with Crocodylus, so it's probably Crocodylus. There's unpublished material from Venta del Moro, and we should be able to submit a manuscript in a few weeks. If I have quotas here, please I have to apologize. I'm a little bit late, but I will do it this summer. And so there's material in Spain, and then there's for sure Crocodylus in the Terre Rosse from Gargano, material that was collected by Freudenthal in part. So this lower jaw is here at Naturalis, then there's material in Florence, and material, at least one juvenile, one small maxilla in Munich. Actually, this is the most relevant specimen because it has those blind pockets, and these are the apomorphic characters of Crocodylus. So we can demonstrate the presence of Crocodylus in Europe thanks to this specimen. And so we can think that it dispersed from northern Africa, from Sahabi, or more probably from different localities, and where we still have to find this taxon. It's not a problem. Yesterday Paul Mazza actually spoke about hippos crossing the sea. It's not a problem for crocodiles crocodilids to survive in salt water, because crocodilids, not alligators, have salt glands in their tongue, so they can get rid of the excess of salt. And at least one extant species is sometimes found, or relatively regularly found, in the sea. That's why it is called salt crocodile. And actually, one specimen that was satellite monitored traveled for nearly 600 kilometers in 25 days. So they are very good candidates for marine dispersals. And just to connect, I'm going to finish in 1 minute or so, with Raffaele Sardella and his team, the Pele Factory and other people. We are working on one specimen that comes from As-Sahabi in Libya, and actually we still have to find morphological characters linking it to the European crocs. But we CT scanned it because one skull is present in Rome, and we had this result these species clusters with the North American taxa. Extinct, Crocodylus falconensis, described by Shire et al. 3 years ago, and all the extant species. So it could be somehow the smoking gun that links the African Crocodylus niloticus to the to the American ones, as predicted by molecular phylogenies. So just a few slides to conclude. The origins of the crocodilians are directly linked to Europe, and the oldest European crocodilians are late Cretaceous in age. The KPG boundary corresponds to decreasing diversity and abundance of terrestrial crocodilomorphs. A marine taxon is found on both sides of the boundary, and it's a crocodilian, and not only a crocodilomorph. Europe hosted during the Cenozoic alligatoroids, crocodiloids, gagaloids, and an extinct clade, plantranids. The endemic Lipulcinodon has been the most common and probably successful European crocodilian. And the last European crocodilians, late Miocene age, was Crocodylus that likely dispersed from Africa to Europe. Thanks for your attention.